That man should not be here. The crystal champagne flute slipped from Maya Johnson's hand and shattered across the polished marble floor. The sharp crack cut through the music like a gunshot. Conversations died instantly. 100 heads turned. At the center of the grand ballroom, beneath golden chandeliers and walls of glass overlooking the city skyline, billionaire Richard Calloway slowly lowered his wine glass. His jaw tightened. The room felt suddenly smaller. Hotter. Maya stood frozen beside a silver serving cart, her dark uniform standing out against the sea of designer tuxedos and diamond necklaces. Her finger remained pointed toward a gray-haired guest near the stage. "Excuse me?" Richard's voice carried effortlessly across the room. Maya swallowed. She could feel every eye on her. Every judgment. Every assumption. "Sir," she said quietly, "that man should not be here." A few guests laughed. Then more joined in. Someone near the back snorted into their drink. Richard shook his head, almost amused. "You interrupted a $10 million celebration for that?" More laughter erupted. Maya's cheeks burned, but her gaze never left the guest. He had not laughed. He had not moved. His eyes stayed fixed on her. Cold. Calculating. Watching. Something about him made the hairs rise on the back of her neck. Richard stepped forward, expensive Italian shoes clicking against the marble. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced with a grin, "apparently my maid has become head of security." The ballroom exploded with laughter again. Maya heard it all. The whispers. The mocking smiles. The pitying looks. Just the help. Just the maid. Just another black woman who did not know her place. "Security," Richard said, still smiling. "Please escort Miss Johnson somewhere she can no longer embarrass herself." 2 guards immediately started toward her. Maya's heart pounded. But she did not look at them. She looked at the guest. The guest finally shifted. Barely. Just enough for the cuff of his tailored suit to slide upward. Maya caught a glimpse of something on his wrist. A faded black symbol. Half hidden beneath the sleeve. Her breath stopped. No. That was impossible. She had seen that symbol before. Years ago. In a dusty file box sitting on her father's desk. Long nights. Cold coffee. Federal reports. Newspaper clippings. A face she was never supposed to forget. The guard reached for her arm. "Come on!" Maya barely heard him. Her eyes remained locked on the symbol. The guest noticed. For the first time all night, his expression changed. Only slightly. But enough. His confidence flickered. Richard saw none of it. "You should be grateful I am not firing you on the spot," he said. "Now get her out of here." More laughter followed. Maya allowed the guards to guide her backward. Step by step. Across the ballroom. Past the tables. Past the stage. Past the people who could not stop staring. Yet her eyes never left the guest. Neither did his. Then, just before the ballroom doors closed between them, Maya saw something that turned her blood cold. The man slowly lifted his wrist and tapped the symbol twice with his finger. Not nervous. Not accidental. A signal. A deliberate signal. And somewhere deep inside the mansion, a phone immediately began to ring. Maya heard the phone ringing before the ballroom doors fully closed. 1 ring. 2 rings. 3. The sound echoed through the marble hallway behind the mansion like a warning nobody else could hear. The security guards guided her forward, their polished shoes tapping against the stone floor. Behind her, laughter still leaked from the ballroom. Richard Calloway had already moved on. To him, the embarrassing interruption was over. To Maya, it was only beginning. "Keep walking," one guard muttered. Maya obeyed, but her pulse hammered against her ribs. The symbol. The man's eyes. The signal. None of it made sense. Yet every instinct told her she had seen something dangerous. They pushed through a service corridor lined with stainless steel carts and humming refrigeration units. The warm smell of expensive food gave way to cold concrete and machine oil. The ringing phone suddenly stopped. Silence. Then somewhere deeper inside the building, an elevator motor rumbled to life. Maya froze. The guards did not notice. Move! She kept walking. But her eyes drifted toward a security monitor mounted above a maintenance desk. The camera feed showed the private underground garage beneath the mansion. Her breath caught. A black SUV had just entered through the restricted gate. No guest vehicles were supposed to arrive during the gala. The driver stepped out. Dark suit. Earpiece. No invitation badge. The feed switched angles. Another vehicle rolled in behind it. Then another. Maya's stomach tightened. Something was happening beneath the mansion while everyone upstairs drank champagne. Back inside the ballroom, Richard stood near the stage shaking hands with investors. Crystal glasses clinked. Cameras flashed. He wore the relaxed smile of a man closing the biggest deal of his life. Everything is back under control, he joked. The crowd laughed. But across the room, the gray-haired guest no longer seemed interested in the celebration. His eyes kept drifting toward the entrance. Waiting. Watching. Anticipating. Richard noticed it. For the first time, a small knot formed in his stomach. Everything all right? He asked. Perfectly, the guest replied. His smile never reached his eyes. Downstairs, Maya could not stop staring at the security screen. More black vehicles. More unfamiliar faces. The garage lights reflected off dark windows, hiding whoever remained inside. One guard finally noticed her attention. What are you looking at? Maya pointed. Those cars. The guard glanced up. His expression changed instantly. That is restricted access. He grabbed the radio at his shoulder. Static answered. Then silence. No response. He tried again. Nothing. A bead of sweat formed along his temple. The second guard exchanged a nervous glance with him. Suddenly, the overhead lights flickered once. Then again. The refrigeration units hummed louder. Somewhere in the walls, backup generators clicked awake. Every sound felt sharper. Heavier. The mansion itself seemed to be holding its breath. Maya felt it too. Then came the realization that made her blood run cold. She looked back at the security screen. One of the men stepping from the newest SUV wore a navy jacket with bright yellow letters across the back. 3 letters. Simple. Impossible. FBI. The guard saw it at the exact same moment. His face drained of color. No, he whispered. Upstairs, Richard's phone vibrated in his pocket. He frowned and checked the screen. The message came from his head of security. Only 4 words appeared. Richard's smile vanished instantly. His hand tightened around the phone. Across the ballroom, the gray-haired guest saw the reaction and took one slow step backward toward a side exit. Richard looked up from the screen. Then looked directly at the man. For the first time all night, he realized something was terribly wrong. Because the message on his phone read, "They are here for him." The ballroom noise collapsed into a low murmur. Richard Calloway stared at the message on his phone as if the words might change. They did not. Around him, crystal glasses sparkled beneath the chandelier light, but suddenly none of it felt glamorous. Across the room, the gray-haired guest had already begun moving. Calm. Controlled. One careful step toward the side corridor. Then another. Richard forced a smile and intercepted him. Leaving already? The man chuckled softly. Early flight. Something in his voice felt rehearsed. Richard glanced toward the security team. No one was responding to their radios anymore. The silence felt wrong. Meanwhile, downstairs, Maya could not pull her eyes away from the monitor. FBI agents were flooding the underground garage with astonishing precision. No sirens. No shouting. Just dark jackets, focused faces, and purposeful movement. One agent stopped beneath a security camera and looked directly into it. Maya's breath caught. The woman lifted a photograph. Even from the grainy monitor, Maya recognized the face instantly. It was the gray-haired guest upstairs. "That is him," Maya whispered. One of the guards turned sharply toward her. "How do you know that?" Maya hesitated. Her father's old case files flashed through her memory. Newspaper clippings spread across a kitchen table. Sleepless nights. Red marker circles around photographs. "Because I have seen his face before." The guard frowned. "Where?" Maya looked away. "A long time ago." Before he could press further, every monitor in the security room flickered. New camera feeds appeared. Hallways. Elevators. Stairwells. Agents moving through the mansion from every direction. The operation was already underway. Upstairs, guests were beginning to notice. Conversations grew quieter. Camera phones appeared. Nervous glances spread through the crowd like wildfire. Richard's pulse quickened. He hated losing control. He built billion-dollar companies by staying ahead of problems. Yet tonight he felt completely blind. "Richard," one investor whispered, "why are federal agents entering your property?" Richard forced another smile. "Probably a misunderstanding." But even he did not believe it. Across the ballroom, the gray-haired guest suddenly changed direction. Not toward the exit anymore. Toward the grand staircase. Fast. Richard noticed immediately. So did several guests. "Sir?" a waiter called. The man ignored him. Something was unraveling. Downstairs, Maya suddenly spotted movement on another camera feed. Her stomach dropped. One FBI team had reached the second floor. Another was securing the garage. But a third team was heading somewhere completely different. Somewhere nobody expected. The mansion archives. The restricted records room beneath Richard's private office. "No," Maya whispered. The female agent on the monitor appeared again. This time she was speaking into her radio. Maya could not hear the words, but she saw the urgency in her face. The target was not simply a guest. They were searching for something else. Something hidden inside the mansion. The realization hit Maya so hard she nearly forgot to breathe. The symbol on the man's wrist. The secret signal. The phone call. None of it had been about escaping. It had been about protecting something. Or someone. Upstairs, the ballroom doors suddenly opened. Every conversation stopped. The room fell silent as 6 FBI agents entered beneath the golden light. Guests stepped aside immediately. Phones rose higher. Richard felt every eye shift toward him. The lead agent approached with calm authority. "Mr. Calloway." Richard straightened. "Can I help you? We are conducting a federal investigation." Hundreds of people listened without breathing. Richard glanced toward the gray-haired guest. The man was gone. Completely gone. The agent noticed Richard's reaction and followed his gaze to the empty staircase. Then she slowly reached into her jacket and removed a photograph. Richard expected to see the guest's face. Instead, his blood turned cold. Because the photograph was not of the gray-haired man. It was a picture of Maya Johnson. And beneath it, stamped in red letters, were the words, "Person of Interest." The ballroom went dead silent. Hundreds of eyes locked onto the photograph in the FBI agent's hand. Maya Johnson. The same woman Richard had humiliated less than 30 minutes earlier. The same maid security had escorted out like she was a problem to be removed. Richard felt heat rush into his face. Around him, whispers exploded like sparks through dry grass. Phones tilted higher. Camera lenses reflected the chandelier light. "You have got to be kidding me," one investor muttered. The lead agent remained expressionless. "Where is Maya Johnson?" she asked. Richard stared at the photograph. His pulse pounded in his ears. "Why are you looking for her?" The agent did not answer. That silence was worse. Across the ballroom, nervous guests exchanged glances. Every second without an explanation made the room more unstable. Downstairs, Maya was staring at the security monitors when the second guard received a call. The moment he answered, his posture changed. His eyes widened. Then slowly, he looked at Maya. "The FBI is asking for you." Maya froze. The cold fluorescent lights above seemed suddenly brighter. The humming generators sounded louder. Somewhere deep inside the mansion, a ventilation fan rattled unevenly. Everything felt wrong. "Why?" the guard asked. Maya did not answer. Because she did not know. Upstairs, Richard's reputation was beginning to crack in real time. Investors were whispering. Reporters were filming. Several guests had already started posting videos online. The billionaire who controlled every room he entered suddenly looked like a man trapped inside one. "Agent," Richard said carefully, "my employee is not a criminal." The woman finally looked at him. "Nobody said she was." The words landed like a hammer. Richard blinked. Around him, several guests stopped recording. A new tension settled over the room. If Maya was not the target, then why was the FBI looking for her? Meanwhile, 2 agents had entered the restricted records archive beneath Richard's office. Cold white lights reflected across rows of metal cabinets. Dust floated through the stale air. One cabinet stood partially open. Inside, dozens of files had been disturbed recently. The agents exchanged looks. Something had already been removed. Upstairs, the gray-haired guest was nowhere to be found. Security teams were searching every floor. Elevators. Stairwells. Private lounges. Nothing. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Richard's head was spinning. He replayed the night again and again. Maya dropping the tray. Maya pointing at the guest. Maya refusing to look away. Then the horrifying realization arrived. She had known. Before anyone. Before security. Before him. Before the FBI. "Find her," Richard suddenly snapped. The command came out louder than intended. Several guests jumped. "Find Maya now." For the first time all evening, desperation leaked through his polished exterior. Downstairs, the guards escorted Maya toward a private elevator. The metal doors slid open with a soft mechanical hiss. She stepped inside beside 2 agents who had just arrived. Neither spoke. The ride upward felt endless. The elevator motor vibrated through the floor. Maya could see her reflection in the brushed steel walls. Her breathing remained steady, but her hands were cold. Very cold. One of the agents finally turned toward her. "Miss Johnson." Maya looked up. "How did you recognize him?" Her stomach tightened. "Recognize who?" The agent held her gaze. "The man from the ballroom." Silence. The elevator continued climbing. Floor after floor. Then the agent reached into his jacket and pulled out another photograph. Maya expected to see the gray-haired guest again. Instead, her blood ran cold. The picture showed her father standing beside the same man 20 years earlier. Both were younger. Both were smiling. And written across the top of the file in red letters was one word. Confidential. The elevator doors began to open. The agent's voice dropped almost to a whisper. "Miss Johnson, your father was never investigating him." Maya felt the ground disappear beneath her. "He was working with him." The elevator doors slid open, but Maya could not move. The photograph trembled slightly in her hands. Her father. Smiling beside the man she had spent years believing he was hunting. The cold fluorescent light washed the color from her face. "No," she whispered. "That is not possible." The FBI agent did not argue. He simply watched her. Around them, the hallway buzzed with distant voices, hurried footsteps, and radio chatter. Somewhere above, a security alarm emitted a soft warning tone before abruptly cutting out. The silence that followed felt heavier. Maya stepped out of the elevator. Her legs felt unsteady. Every memory she trusted was suddenly under attack. Her father had been the one person she never questioned. The one person who taught her to pay attention when everyone else looked away. Now even that certainty was crumbling. Upstairs, the ballroom had transformed into a pressure cooker. Investors clustered together in nervous circles. Camera phones remained raised. The elegant atmosphere was gone, replaced by suspicion, fear, rumors spreading faster than facts. Richard Calloway stood near the center of it all, struggling to maintain control. "Everybody remain calm," he said. His voice sounded forced even to himself. Nobody listened. One investor checked his stock portfolio. Another quietly called legal counsel. A third walked directly toward the exit. Richard watched it happen and felt panic tightening around his throat. Decades spent building his reputation. Millions invested into tonight's deal. Everything suddenly felt fragile. Then the lead FBI agent entered the ballroom. Every conversation died instantly. "Where is Maya Johnson?" she asked again. The room fell silent. Richard's jaw tightened. "Why does everyone suddenly care about my maid?" Several guests exchanged uncomfortable glances. Even as he said it, the words sounded wrong. Smaller. Meaner. The agent stepped closer. "Because she may be the only person in this building who saw what everyone else missed." The statement hit the room like a shockwave. Richard blinked. Around him, dozens of faces shifted. The humiliation landed all at once. The maid he had mocked in front of everyone was now being described as the most important witness in the mansion. Downstairs, Maya followed the agents through a restricted corridor beneath the estate. The air smelled of concrete dust and hot machinery. Pipes rattled overhead. Emergency lights reflected off exposed steel beams. Every sound felt amplified. Every shadow seemed alive. Then they entered a small operations room. Multiple screens covered the wall. Security footage. Financial records. Surveillance photos. The gray-haired man's face appeared everywhere. Maya's pulse quickened. One screen displayed images from 20 years earlier. There was her father again. Standing beside the same man. Different city. Different year. Same smile. "Why are you showing me this?" Maya asked. No one answered immediately. The room suddenly felt too warm. One of the agents opened a file. "Because the story you were told is incomplete." Maya stared at the images. Something felt wrong. Not emotionally. Logically. She moved closer. The glow from the monitors reflected across her eyes. Then she saw it. A detail so small nobody else appeared to notice. Her breathing stopped. "Zoom in." The agent frowned. "What?" "Zoom in on my father's watch." The room fell silent. The image enlarged. Then enlarged again. Suddenly everyone could see it. The date displayed on the photograph. Maya's father supposedly began investigating the gray-haired man in 2004. But the watch in the picture showed a manufacturing model that was not released until 2009. The room froze. One agent leaned forward. Another checked the metadata. A third slowly removed his glasses. "That photo," Maya whispered. "It cannot be real." Nobody spoke. The implication was terrifying. If the evidence connecting her father to the suspect had been fabricated, then someone inside the investigation had planted it. Upstairs, Richard's phone suddenly vibrated again. He looked down. A new message had arrived from an unknown number. Only 5 words appeared on the screen. Richard's blood turned cold. Across the ballroom, every light in the mansion flickered at the exact same moment. The message read, "You are chasing the wrong man." The lights steadied, but nobody relaxed. The mansion felt different now. Quieter. Heavier. Like a building holding its breath. Richard Calloway stared at the message on his phone. "You are chasing the wrong man." 5 words. Nothing more. Yet they echoed louder than the dozens of conversations that had filled the ballroom an hour earlier. Around him, guests spoke in hushed voices. Phones glowed in trembling hands. Nobody was celebrating anymore. Nobody was smiling. Across the room, the FBI agents had stopped moving. Even they seemed unsettled. Downstairs, the operations room had fallen into complete silence. The monitors continued glowing across the walls, washing everyone in cold blue light. Maya stood motionless in front of the fabricated photograph. Her father's face stared back at her from the screen. But now she saw it differently. Not as evidence. As bait. Someone wanted her to believe a lie. Someone powerful. Someone careful. One of the agents cleared his throat. You spotted that inconsistency in less than 30 seconds. Maya did not answer immediately. The ventilation system hummed softly overhead. Somewhere down the corridor, an elevator motor groaned and then went silent. Because whoever created it made one mistake, she finally said. Her voice was calm. Too calm. The room shifted. The agents exchanged glances. A few hours ago she had been dismissed as a maid. Now trained investigators were waiting for her conclusions. Maya stepped closer to another monitor. Surveillance footage rolled silently. Hallways. Elevators. Guests. Security teams. Then she paused one feed. There. An agent leaned forward. What am I looking at? Maya pointed. A reflection in a polished marble column. Barely visible. A distorted shape. Most people would never notice it. But she did. That is not the guest. The room went still again. The image enlarged. The reflection sharpened slightly. The gray-haired man everyone had been chasing was standing beside someone else. Someone hidden outside the camera frame. Someone who never appeared directly on any recording. The agent's jaw tightened. Can you identify them? Maya slowly shook her head. No. Then she looked up. But they were giving the orders. Upstairs, Richard felt the walls closing in. Investors were leaving now. Quietly. One by one. Every departure felt like money walking out the door. Every whispered conversation felt like another crack in his empire. His phone continued vibrating with calls he refused to answer. Reporters had gathered outside the estate gates. Social media clips from the ballroom were already spreading. The billionaire who laughed at his maid was becoming part of the story. Richard hated that more than he wanted to admit. Then he noticed something unsettling. People were looking at Maya's photograph differently now. Not with suspicion. With curiosity. Respect. Even fear. The shift made his stomach tighten. For the first time all night, he wondered whether he had completely misjudged her. Meanwhile, the mansion's mechanical systems seemed to be winding down. The generators no longer strained. The emergency lights stopped flickering. The distant rumble of engines faded from the underground garage. The chaos was ending. Yet somehow the tension felt worse. Maya sensed it too. Because chaos was easy to recognize. Silence was where dangerous people operated. One agent approached carrying a tablet. We recovered this from the archive room. He handed it to her. The screen displayed a digital floor plan of the mansion. Hundreds of rooms. Hidden corridors. Maintenance tunnels. Maya studied it quietly. Then her eyes narrowed. What is it? The agent asked. Maya zoomed in on a section beneath the east wing. The blueprint showed a narrow service corridor ending abruptly behind a solid wall. Except the measurements did not make sense. The wall should not exist. There was empty space behind it. The room temperature seemed to drop. That corridor was added later, Maya said softly. Someone wanted to hide something. No one spoke. Even the agents looked uneasy now. Upstairs, Richard suddenly received another message. Different sender. No number attached. Just a photograph. He opened it. His face immediately drained of color. The image showed a hidden room somewhere inside his own mansion. A room he had never seen before. And sitting in the center of that room was a steel case stamped with a federal evidence seal. At the bottom of the photo, a single line of text appeared. Richard read it once. Then again. Across the operations room, every monitor suddenly went black. The darkness lasted only a second. But when the screens came back on, one new camera feed had appeared. A hidden corridor. A locked steel door. And slowly, almost silently, that door was beginning to open. The steel door continued opening on every monitor. Inch by inch. No one in the operations room spoke. The soft hum of electronics seemed impossibly loud now. Cold blue light washed across tense faces. Maya stood perfectly still, her eyes locked on the screen. Around her, trained agents shifted uneasily. For the first time all night, they were waiting for her reaction. Upstairs, the ballroom had become a silent theater. Investors, executives, reporters, and staff stood frozen beneath the chandeliers. Hundreds of eyes moved between Richard Calloway and the giant monitor FBI technicians had connected to the mansion's security system. The hidden corridor now filled the screen. Nobody could look away. Richard felt his pulse hammering in his throat. The photograph on his phone. The hidden room. The steel case. Nothing made sense anymore. His empire suddenly felt built on quicksand. Then the door finally stopped moving. Silence. Complete silence. A single overhead light flickered on inside the hidden chamber. The room was smaller than expected. Concrete walls. Steel shelving. No furniture. No decorations. Only one object sat in the center. The evidence case from the photograph. Every camera phone in the ballroom lifted higher. Maya stared at the monitor. Something about the room bothered her. Not what was inside. What was missing? Wait, she said quietly. One of the agents looked at her. What? Maya stepped closer to the screen. That room was designed to distract us. Several agents frowned. The lead investigator crossed her arms. Explain. Maya pointed toward the far wall. Look at the dust. The image zoomed in. Tiny particles covered almost every surface. Except one narrow section near the back corner. Clean. Recently disturbed. The room changed instantly. What looked like the answer suddenly felt like another trap. A murmur spread through the operations center. Upstairs, the ballroom reacted the same way. Richard felt the room shifting around him. Every person who had laughed at Maya was now watching her dismantle assumptions in real time. The same woman they dismissed as a maid was seeing details federal investigators missed. The humiliation landed harder because nobody could deny it anymore. The lead agent immediately dispatched a search team. The hidden room appeared on multiple monitors as agents entered carefully. Their flashlights swept across concrete walls. The evidence case remained untouched. Yet every eye was now focused on the back corner Maya identified. One agent knelt beside the wall. Another ran a scanner across the surface. Then came a soft beep. The room froze. The scanner beeped again. Hollow space. Behind the wall. A wave of disbelief rolled through the ballroom. Richard heard someone whisper. She was right. Another voice followed. Again. The words hit him harder than any accusation. Because they were true. Maya had been right from the beginning. He remembered the broken champagne glass. The laughter. The security guards escorting her away. Every second replayed with brutal clarity. Downstairs, Maya barely noticed. Her focus never wavered. The wall panel was removed. Dust drifted through the flashlight beams. Behind it sat another compartment. Smaller. Older. Hidden far more carefully than the first room. One agent slowly reached inside and pulled out a sealed black binder. The atmosphere changed immediately. The lead investigator's expression disappeared. Completely. She opened the binder. Her eyes moved across the first page. Then stopped. Her breathing changed. Several agents stepped closer. Nobody spoke. Upstairs, the ballroom monitor displayed only the investigator's face. The silence became unbearable. Richard felt sweat gathering beneath his collar. Investors leaned forward. Reporters stopped whispering. Even the cameras seemed frozen. Finally, the lead investigator looked directly into the nearest camera. Her voice came out almost as a whisper. "Oh my God!" Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then she slowly turned the binder around so the others could see the cover. The room inside the monitor fell silent. The ballroom fell silent. Richard felt his knees weaken. Because stamped across the front of the binder was a name no one expected to see. Not the gray-haired guest. Not Maya's father. Not anyone under investigation. The name printed across the file was Richard Calloway. The silence after the reveal felt heavier than any alarm. No one in the ballroom moved. No one spoke. The giant monitor still displayed the binder cover, and the name printed across it seemed to pull all the air from the room. Richard Calloway. The billionaire stared at the screen as if he were looking at a stranger. Around him, hundreds of faces reflected the same stunned disbelief. The soft hum of the ventilation system was suddenly the loudest sound in the mansion. Phones remained raised, recording every second. Investors who had once competed for Richard's attention now watched him with uncertainty. Suspicion. Distance. Downstairs, the operations room remained frozen. The lead investigator slowly turned another page inside the binder. Her expression did not become angry. It became concerned. That change frightened everyone more. Maya stood quietly beside the monitors. She did not smile. She did not celebrate. Her eyes remained fixed on the evidence. Looking. Listening. Thinking. One agent glanced toward her. Then another. The shift was subtle but undeniable. Hours earlier she had been the least important person in the mansion. Now trained investigators were unconsciously looking to her before making decisions. Upstairs, Richard felt every stare. Every whisper. Every judgment. He remembered the shattered champagne glass. The laughter. The way he had publicly reduced Maya to a joke. Heat rose into his face. Not from anger anymore. From shame. A painful realization settled into his chest. The one person who had tried to warn him was the person he dismissed first. Across the ballroom, a reporter quietly lowered her phone and whispered, "She saw it before all of us." Nobody disagreed. The lead investigator finally appeared on the main screen again. "We have reviewed the first section of the file." Her voice remained controlled. Professional. "Mr. Calloway is not identified as a suspect." A collective breath escaped the ballroom. Richard closed his eyes for a brief second. Relief flooded through him. Then the investigator continued, "He appears to be a target." The room froze all over again. Richard's eyes opened. "What?" The word escaped before he could stop it. Downstairs, agents turned pages rapidly. Financial records. Property acquisitions. Corporate transactions stretching back years. Every document pointed toward the same conclusion. Someone had spent decades constructing a trap around Richard's empire. Slowly. Patiently. Invisibly. Maya watched the evidence unfold. The hidden room. The fake photograph. The false trail leading to her father. Every piece had been designed to direct attention away from the real architect. The realization was terrifying. Because whoever built the deception understood investigators almost as well as investigators understood criminals. Upstairs, guests no longer looked at Maya with curiosity. They looked at her with something else. Respect. One executive who had laughed earlier stared at the floor. Another avoided eye contact entirely. The humiliation had reversed itself. Not through revenge. Through truth. Richard stood motionless beneath the chandeliers. Finally, he looked directly toward the camera feeding from the operations room. Toward Maya? For several seconds neither spoke. Hundreds of people watched. Then Richard lowered his head slightly. Just enough. A small gesture. But in that room it felt enormous. "I was wrong," he said quietly. The ballroom remained silent. Maya heard every word through the speakers. She could see how difficult it was for him to say them. Yet she did not respond immediately. She simply nodded once. Calm. Dignified. Unshaken. Somehow that made the moment even more powerful. Around the room, people exchanged glances. The story they thought they were watching had become something entirely different. But the relief did not last. In the operations room, another agent suddenly stopped turning pages. His hand froze above the binder. "You need to see this," The room tightened instantly. Maya stepped forward. The lead investigator leaned closer. On the final page was a recent photograph. Not 20 years old. Not 10 years old. Recent. Very recent. The image showed the gray-haired man standing beside someone whose face had been partially obscured. Yet one detail remained visible. A distinctive ring reflecting light from a conference room chandelier. Maya's stomach dropped. She had seen that ring before. Tonight. Inside this mansion. Upstairs, Richard's phone vibrated one final time. A new message appeared. No number. No name. Only a single sentence. Richard read it once. Then slowly looked around the ballroom. His face drained of color. Because the message said, "The person you are looking for is still in the room." The ballroom no longer sounded like a celebration. It sounded like people thinking. Hundreds of guests stood beneath the fading chandelier light, silent as the final message lingered in the air. The person you are looking for is still in the room. No one rushed for the exits. No one spoke above a whisper. Even the reporters lowered their cameras slightly, as if they understood they were witnessing something larger than a scandal. Upstairs, the giant monitor remained illuminated. The hidden room. The evidence binder. The photograph. Every piece of the puzzle had changed the shape of the night. Maya stood near the edge of the operations room, her shoulders relaxed, her breathing steady. Around her, agents moved with quiet purpose now. The frantic energy was gone. In its place was clarity. One by one, the remaining pieces began fitting together. The ring from the photograph belonged not to a criminal mastermind, but to an attorney who had spent years helping conceal records for powerful clients. The gray-haired man had been a messenger. A distraction. The real conspiracy was already collapsing under its own weight. The hidden files exposed it. The fake evidence exposed it. And Maya had exposed the lies holding everything together. Upstairs, Richard watched the updates unfold on the screen. His expensive suit suddenly felt heavier than it had hours ago. He thought about how the night began. A shattered champagne glass. A room full of laughter. A woman everyone dismissed because of the uniform she wore. He closed his eyes briefly. The memory stung. Not because it embarrassed him. Because it revealed something about himself he did not like. Across the ballroom, guests who had mocked Maya avoided looking toward the screens. Others simply stared quietly. The atmosphere had transformed. Nobody saw a maid anymore. They saw the person who had been right when everyone else was wrong. Downstairs, one of the agents approached Maya. "You helped us see what we missed." Maya glanced toward the monitor. "You found the truth." The agent shook her head. "No. You noticed it first." Maya offered a small smile, nothing more. No victory. No celebration. Just quiet acceptance. The kind that comes from knowing who you are long before anyone else notices. Hours later, the mansion felt almost empty. The engines in the underground garage had cooled. The generators hummed softly in the background. Reporters were leaving. Investors were leaving. The endless noise of the evening was dissolving into silence. Dawn had begun to paint pale silver light across the eastern windows. Richard stood alone near the grand staircase when he saw Maya walking toward the front entrance. She carried nothing except her coat. No entourage. No attention. No need for either. For a moment he simply watched her. Then he stepped forward. The marble floor echoed beneath his shoes. Maya stopped. The mansion around them was quiet enough to hear distant birds outside. Richard looked at her, really looked at her, perhaps for the first time. The woman he had judged in seconds had seen what wealth, influence, investigators, and experts had all overlooked. "Maya!" His voice was lower now. "Human." She turned. Richard hesitated. The apology seemed too small compared to everything that had happened. Yet it was the only honest thing he had left. "Thank you," he said. Maya studied him for a moment. Then she nodded once. "Take care of the people who trust you, Mr. Calloway." Nothing more. No speech. No lecture. Somehow that made it mean more. Richard lowered his head slightly. This time not from pressure. From respect. Maya turned and continued walking. The massive front doors opened. Cool morning air drifted inside. Golden sunlight stretched across the polished floor. Behind her, the mansion stood exactly where it had always stood. But the power inside it had changed completely. Phones had gone silent. Cameras had been lowered. The laughter was gone. Maya stepped into the morning light, her shadow stretching across the stone path ahead. Back inside, Richard remained motionless at the top of the stairs, watching her disappear beyond the gates. And in the stillness that followed, everyone who had witnessed the night understood the same thing. The strongest person in the room had never been the billionaire standing beneath the chandeliers. It had been the woman everyone almost ignored,